The morning air in late October carried that particular crispness that made Seattle feel alive. The kind of cold that bit at your cheeks and made you grateful for the warm refuge of indoor spaces. Daniel pulled his charcoal peacoat tighter as he turned onto Carter Street, a quiet neighborhood tucked between the bustle of Capitol Hill and the residential calm of Madison Valley. He'd walked past the coffee shop a dozen times before actually noticing it. Grounds for Joy announced the hand-painted sign, letters slightly uneven in a way that suggested genuine craftsmanship rather than corporate polish. Through the large front windows, Daniel could see warm Edison bulbs, casting a golden glow over mismatched furniture vintage armchairs. A worn leather sofa, tables that looked like they each had a story. It was the opposite of the sleek, minimalist Starbucks 3 blocks from his apartment. That was exactly why Daniel found himself pushing open the door. A small bell chimed, an actual bell. Not electronic ding-and. The scent of fresh coffee and something cinnamon hit him immediately. The interior was even more welcoming than it had appeared from outside. Local artwork covered the brick walls. A bookshelf in the corner held a collection of well-loved paperbacks with a small sign, "Take one, leave one," or just borrow for your visit. A record player in the corner spun something jazzy and smooth. "Be right with you," called a voice from behind the espresso machine. Daniel approached the counter, his eyes scanning the menu board. The drinks had names like the Optimist and Existential Espresso and Hug in a Mug. It was almost aggressively cheerful. He should have found it annoying instead. Something in his chest loosened, just slightly. "Okay? Sorry about that. The steamer has a mind of its own this morning." The barista emerged from behind the machine, and Daniel felt his carefully constructed composure slip. The man was radiant. That was the only word for it. Not conventionally handsome in the polished, symmetrical way that graced magazine covers, but radiant in the way that certain people just are. Warm brown skin, dark eyes that crinkled at the corners, a smile that reached all the way to those eyes. He wore a simple white t-shirt under a denim apron, his hair cut short and neat, a small rainbow pin on his apron strap next to a pronoun pin that read he, him. "First time here?" the barista asked, his voice carrying a natural musicality. "I'm Marcus." "Welcome to Grounds for Joy." Daniel realized he'd been staring. "Daniel," he managed. "Yes. First time. I usually go to the Starbucks down on Madison. Yeah, I know the one." Chris grinned. "No judgment. They're efficient. But we're us. What can I make for you, Daniel?" The way Marcus said his name, like he was tasting it, committing it to memory, made Daniel's stomach do something complicated. "Just a black coffee." "Large." Marcus raised an eyebrow, but his smile didn't fade. "A man who knows what he wants. I respect that." But he leaned forward slightly, conspiratorially. "Between you and me, it's a beautiful morning. You look like you could use something special, and I make a maple cinnamon latte that has literally made people cry." "Happy tears," he added quickly. "Good crying?" Daniel felt the corners of his mouth twitch. When was the last time he'd almost smiled at a stranger? "I don't really do sweet drinks." "It's not sweet," Marcus countered. "It's balanced. There's a difference. Tell you what, I'll make you one, and if you hate it, the black coffee's on the house." Deal. There was something about Marcus's energy, not pushy, but genuinely enthusiastic. Like he truly cared whether Daniel experienced the joy of a well-crafted latte that made it impossible to refuse. "Deal. Excellent." Marcus's whole face lit up. "You won't regret this." "Well, you might, but I don't think you will." As Marcus worked, Daniel found himself watching. There was a grace to the way Marcus moved, a practiced fluidity that spoke of someone who loved what he did. He hummed along with the jazz playing in the background, occasionally talking to the espresso machine like it was a temperamental friend. "Come on, Bella. Don't be difficult today." "There we go. Beautiful." Other customers came and went. An elderly woman Marcus greeted by name, asking about her grandson. A young couple who Marcus seemed to know were regulars by the way he started their drinks before they ordered. A nervous-looking teenager who Marcus complimented on their new haircut with such genuine warmth that they left smiling. Marcus created atmosphere. The way other people breathed naturally, effortlessly, generously. sliding a to-go cup across the counter. The sleeve had a hand-drawn smiley face on it. Moment of truth. Daniel lifted the cup, very aware that Marcus was watching him with the anticipation of a chef watching a food critic. The first sip was perfect. Rich espresso, yes, but layered with warming spices and just a hint of maple that didn't overwhelm but enhanced. It was autumn in a cup. It was comfort without being cloying. Well, Marcus asked, though his smile suggested he already knew the answer. It's good, Daniel admitted. Good. Just good? Marcus clutched his chest in mock offense. I'm wounded. Devastated. I'll need at least 3 therapy sessions to recover from good. Despite himself, Daniel laughed. Actually laughed. A rusty sound that surprised him as much as it seemed to delight Marcus. It's excellent, Daniel corrected. You were right. It's balanced. I was right, Marcus repeated, grinning triumphantly. I'm going to write that down. October 23rd, customer admits Marcus was right. Historic day. He rang up the drink. That'll be $5.50. As Daniel handed over his card, their fingers brushed. It lasted less than a second, but Daniel felt it like an electric current, something that traveled up his arm and lodged somewhere near his heart. If Marcus felt it too, he didn't show it. Or maybe he did. Maybe that slight pause, that quick intake of breath, was acknowledgement enough, Marcus said as he processed the payment. Will we see you again, Daniel? Who likes black coffee, but appreciates a good latte? It was a casual question. A barista, making conversation. But something in Marcus's eyes made it feel like more. Maybe, Daniel said, which was more commitment than he'd made to anything social in months. Maybe's good, Marcus replied. I'll take maybe. Have a great day, Daniel. Stay warm out there. Daniel left the shop with his perfect latte and a strange, unfamiliar feeling in his chest. It took him 3 blocks to identify it. Hope. He promptly told himself not to be ridiculous. For the next week, Daniel's morning routine changed. He told himself it was just because the coffee was better. More convenient, actually, since Carter Street was on his way to his architecture firm's office. The fact that Marcus was there, always cheerful, always remembering his name, always ready with a new drink suggestion, or a terrible joke, or a comment about the weather that somehow felt profound. That was just a coincidence. The architect returns. Marcus announced on day 3, as if Daniel were a celebrity. And on this fine morning, I'm feeling inspired. Trust me with your order. Daniel should have said no. Should have stuck with the safe choice. Instead, he heard himself say, sure. Marcus's resulting smile was worth any potential coffee disaster. By Friday, Daniel had tried 6 different drinks, each one somehow perfect for the morning he was having. Marcus seemed to have an intuition about people, about what they needed before they knew they needed it. You're a storm cloud today, Marcus observed that Friday, his dark eyes studying Daniel's face. Something rough at work? Daniel was surprised into honesty. Big client meeting. High stakes. Ah, Marcus nodded seriously. Then he started making a drink. I'm giving you the Warrior. It's a double shot Gibraltar, with raw honey and a pinch of cayenne. Sounds weird, tastes like courage. When Daniel took the first sip, he tasted exactly what Marcus had promised: boldness, strength, a warmth that felt fortifying. How do you do that? Daniel asked before he could stop himself. Do what? Know exactly what someone needs. Marcus's smile softened into something more vulnerable, more real. I pay attention. Most people just want to be seen, you know? Really seen. His gaze held Daniel's for a moment that stretched, meaningful and charged. You'd be surprised what you can learn if you actually look. Daniel felt exposed, like Marcus could see through all his carefully constructed defenses. It should have sent him running. Instead, he stayed. Daniel asked quietly. Marcus leaned on the counter, bringing them closer. The coffee shop had emptied out. Just the 2 of them, and the jazz and the soft morning light filtering through the windows. I see someone who's tired of being alone, but scared of not being alone, Marcus said softly. Someone who's built walls so high he can't remember what it's like to let someone in. Someone who wants to be known but doesn't believe he deserves it. Daniel's breath caught. That's pretty presumptuous, is it wrong? No. God, no. It wasn't wrong at all. I don't know you, Daniel said, defensive walls slamming back up. Not yet, Marcus agreed easily. But I'd like to. If you'd let me. This was it. The moment Daniel usually fled. The moment he made an excuse, created distance. Protected himself from the possibility of pain, but Marcus was looking at him with such openness, such genuine interest, such kindness, that Daniel felt his resolve cracking. Why? Daniel asked. Why would you want to know me? Marcus's smile was gentle. Because in a week of morning conversations, you've made me laugh 3 times. You're thoughtful enough to put your dishes in the bus tub without being asked. You leave exact change in the tip jar every day. And when you think no one's looking, you have the saddest eyes I've ever seen. He paused. And because when you do smile, really smile, it feels like watching the sun come out. Daniel's heart was pounding. This was too much. Too fast. Too honest. Should go, he said, grabbing his coffee. Thanks for the drink. He was out the door before Marcus could respond. Before he could see the disappointment in those warm brown eyes, before he could do something terrifying like stay, Daniel didn't go back to Grounds for Joy on Monday. Or Tuesday. He told himself it was because he was busy client presentations. Design deadlines, the usual architectural chaos. He went back to the Starbucks on Madison, ordered his black coffee from baristas who didn't know his name, and pretended that everything was fine. But he couldn't stop thinking about Marcus's words. When you do smile, really smile, it feels like watching the sun come out. No one had said anything like that to Daniel in years, maybe ever. His ex, Cameron, certainly hadn't. Their 3-year relationship had been built on convenience and proximity more than genuine connection. When Cameron left abruptly, coldly, for someone more emotionally available, Daniel had felt relief more than heartbreak, which maybe said everything about what they'd had, but it had also reinforced every belief. Daniel held about himself that he was too closed off, too damaged, too much work. That people eventually tired of trying to reach him, better to be alone than abandoned. Wednesday afternoon, Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from his sister Sophie. Sophie, coffee this week? I miss your grumpy face. Daniel, I'm not grumpy. Sophie, that's exactly what a grumpy person would say. Thursday, 4 p.m., that cute place you mentioned on Carter Street? Daniel's stomach flipped. He'd made the mistake of mentioning Grounds for Joy to Sophie last week. Just a passing comment about finding a new coffee shop. Of course she'd remembered. Sophie remembered everything. Daniel, different place might be better, Sophie. Nope. You said their lattes were excellent. You never say anything's excellent. I need to see this place. Thursday, 4 p.m. Be there, or I'm showing up at your office. Knowing Sophie. She absolutely would. So Thursday at 4 p.m. Daniel found himself pushing open the door to Grounds for Joy, bell chiming, jazz playing, and his heart doing something complicated in his chest. Marcus was behind the counter, laughing at something a customer was saying. Then he looked up, saw Daniel, and his entire face transformed. Daniel. Just his name. But the way Marcus said it with warmth and surprise, and something that looked like relief made Daniel's chest tight. Hey, Daniel managed. Hey yourself. Marcus's smile was cautious now, less exuberant than usual. Stranger, thought maybe you'd found a better coffee shop. There isn't one, Daniel said honestly. Something in Marcus's expression softened. No. They stared at each other for a moment that felt suspended in time, charged with everything unspoken between them. I'm actually meeting my sister, Daniel said, breaking the moment. She insisted on this place. Smart sister, Marcus said. The usual? She can order for herself. Daniel turned as the bell chimed. Here. Sophie Reed was a force of nature contained in a 5'4" frame. She had the same dark hair as Daniel, but wore it long and wild. The same gray eyes, but filled with mischief where his held guardedness. She swept into the coffee shop like she owned it, immediately clocking Marcus and giving Daniel a look that said, "Oh, this is why you've been weird." "It must be Marcus," Sophie announced, approaching the counter with the confidence of someone who'd never met a stranger. "I'm Sophie Daniels' infinitely cooler younger sister. He's told me absolutely nothing about you, which means he thinks about you constantly." Sophie Daniels started, mortified. "It's a sibling thing," Sophie continued, unbothered. "The less he talks about something, the more it matters. For example, he never mentioned his ex, which meant it was a disaster. But he mentioned your lattes, which means, what can I get for you, Sophie?" Marcus interrupted smoothly, though his eyes were dancing with amusement. "Any sister of Daniels is VIP here. I like you already," Sophie declared. "Surprise me. Make me something that will make my brother jealous that I got a better drink than him." Marcus laughed, a rich, genuine sound that filled the space. Challenge accepted. As Marcus worked, Sophie dragged Daniel to a corner table, her expression shifting from playful to serious the moment they sat down. "Okay, Spill," she said. "Who is he and why haven't you mentioned him?" "He's a barista. There's nothing to mention." "Daniel Matthew Reed. I have known you for 28 years. That man looks at you like you're the most interesting person in the world, and you look at him like you're terrified and hopeful at the same time. So I repeat, Spill." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture he'd never quite shaken. "It's nothing. He's friendly. He's friendly with everyone. He's not looking at everyone the way he's looking at you." Was that true? Daniel had been so caught up in his own confusion, his own fear, that he hadn't let himself consider that Marcus might be feeling something too. "I don't do this anymore, Soph," Daniel said quietly. "The connection thing. The letting people in thing. It's easier alone. Easier isn't the same as better." Sophie's voice was gentle now. "You've been easy for 2 years. You've been safe and alone and protected. Has it made you happy?" "No." The answer was immediately, undeniably no. "I don't want to get hurt again, so you'll hurt yourself instead." Slowly, by never letting yourself feel anything, Sophie reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "Danny Cameron was an asshole who didn't deserve you. You know that, right? Just because one person couldn't handle your depths doesn't mean you don't deserve someone who can. Someone who wants to." Before Daniel could respond, Marcus approached with 2 drinks, setting them down with a flourish. For Sophie, the adventurer, lavender honey latte with a shot of vanilla. And for Daniel, Marcus placed a familiar cup in front of him. "Your usual?" Because some days, the familiar is what we need. The gesture was so thoughtful, so attuned to exactly what Daniel needed in that moment, that he felt emotion well up in his throat. "Thank you," Daniel said, meeting Marcus's eyes. "Anytime." Marcus lingered for a moment like he wanted to say more, then smiled and retreated behind the counter. Sophie took a sip of her latte and made an exaggerated sound of pleasure. "Oh my God, okay, you're going to marry him." "I've decided." "Sophie, I'm serious. Anyone who can make coffee this good and look at you like that is a keeper." She studied Daniel's face. "You like him?" It wasn't a question. "I barely know him." "I can see it. You're scared, but you want to." Sophie's expression turned challenging. "So what are you going to do about it?" What was he going to do? Run away again? Keep coming back for coffee, but never actually taking the risk to connect? Build a life of almosts and maybes and safe distances. Daniel looked across the coffee shop at Marcus, who was making drinks and chatting with customers, but kept glancing over at Daniel with something hopeful in his eyes. "I don't know," Daniel admitted. "Well, figure it out," Sophie said. "Because that man is interested, and you're interested. And life's too short to let fear make all your decisions." They stayed for an hour, Sophie regaling Marcus with embarrassing childhood stories whenever he had a free moment. Daniel simultaneously mortified and charmed by the easy way his sister and Marcus connected. By the time they left, Marcus and Sophie had exchanged Instagram handles, and Sophie had extracted a promise that Marcus would make her his seasonal special next time she visited. "I like your sister," Marcus said to Daniel as Sophie went to use the restroom before they left. "She's not subtle." "No," Daniel agreed. "She's never been subtle." "Must be nice, though, having someone who knows you that well, who shows up for you." There was something wistful in Marcus's voice, a glimpse beneath his perpetually cheerful exterior. "You don't have that?" Daniel asked before he could stop himself. Marcus's smile flickered. "My family and I. We're working on it. They're not bad people. They just don't quite know what to do with a gay son who chose coffee over law school." He shrugged, but the gesture wasn't as casual as he probably intended. "It's fine. I've built my own family. Friends, community. It's enough." But was it? Daniel wondered. Because in that moment, Marcus looked just as lonely as Daniel felt. "For what it's worth," Daniel said carefully, "what you've built here," he gestured around the coffee shop, "it's special. You make people feel seen. That's rare." Marcus's eyes met his, surprised and pleased and vulnerable. "Thanks, Daniel. That means a lot." Sophie returned, breaking the moment, but as they left, Daniel felt Marcus's gaze following him. Outside, Sophie linked her arm through Daniel's. So what? So when are you going to ask him out?" "I'm not Daniel." "Do you like him?" The honest answer fought its way up. "Yes. Does he seem interested?" "Maybe." "Is there any actual reason not to try, other than fear?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "What if I'm not ready? What if I let him in, and I'm still too closed off, and I hurt him, or he leaves, and what if you let him in and it's wonderful?" Sophie interrupted. "What if you give yourself a chance to be happy? What if you trust yourself enough to try?" Those questions followed Daniel home through his evening, into his restless sleep. What if? Friday morning, Daniel walked into Grounds for Joy with something that felt terrifyingly like determination. Marcus's face lit up when he saw him. 2 days in a row. "I'm honored." "I want to take you to dinner," Daniel blurted out, his carefully prepared speech evaporating. "If you'd like. If you're interested. No pressure if you're not. I wanted to ask." He was rambling. God, when had he become someone who rambled? Marcus's smile grew slowly like sunrise. "I thought you'd never ask." "Yeah." "Daniel, I've been making you specialty drinks and drawing. Smiley faces on your cups, and probably being embarrassingly obvious for 2 weeks. Yes. Absolutely yes." Relief. And terror and excitement flooded through Daniel in equal measure. "Tomorrow night." "Tomorrow's perfect." Marcus pulled out his phone. "Give me your number so we can actually plan this like adults, instead of through coffee cup messages." As they exchanged numbers, their hands brushed again, and this time, neither pulled away. "Fair warning," Marcus said, his voice softer now, more serious. "I'm really interested in getting to know you. The real you. I'm not scared of complicated or messy or guarded. So if that's too much, tell me now." Daniel looked at Marcus, this radiant, kind, brave man who'd seen through his walls and decided he was worth the effort anyway, and made a choice. "It's not too much," Daniel said. "I'm going to try." "To let you in?" "It might be messy. Messy's okay." Marcus's smile was gentle and understanding and full of promise. "I've got time. And for the record, I think you're worth it." Something in Daniel's chest cracked open, just slightly. Light spilled in. "Tomorrow, 7 o'clock?" Daniel confirmed. "It's a date." As Daniel left with his coffee, he caught his reflection in the shop window. He was smiling, really smiling, and for once, he didn't try to hide it. Maybe Sophie was right. Maybe it was time to choose hope over fear. Maybe, just maybe. He was ready to try. Daniel changed his outfit 4 times before their date. This was ridiculous. He was a 30-year-old man, not a teenager. But nothing felt right. Too formal, too casual, trying too hard, not trying enough. Finally, he settled on dark jeans, a fitted burgundy Henley, and the leather jacket Sophie had bought him last Christmas that he'd worn exactly once in the mirror. He looked like someone going on a date, someone taking a chance. The thought made his stomach flip. Marcus had suggested a small Italian place in Capitol Hill, cozy, great food, and they have this mushroom risotto that will change your life. And Daniel arrived exactly at 7. Because his anxiety wouldn't let him be fashionably late, Marcus was already there, waiting outside the restaurant. And Daniel's breath caught. He'd only ever seen Marcus in his coffee shop uniform t-shirts and aprons and casual comfort. Tonight, Marcus wore fitted black pants and a deep green button-down that made his dark eyes even more striking. His smile, when he saw Daniel, was nervous and genuine and utterly disarming. "Hi," Marcus said. "Hi." Daniel felt suddenly shy, like they were meeting for the first time all over again. "You look terrified?" Marcus supplied with a self-deprecating laugh. "Because I am. I know I'm all confident barista during the day, but apparently I turn into an awkward mess on actual dates. Fair warning." The admission eased something in Daniel. "Me too," he confessed. "I've changed my shirt 4 times. Only 4. Immature. I'm on round 6, Marcus grinned, his nervousness transforming into something more playful. "Should we go in and be awkward together over really good food?" "That sounds perfect." The restaurant was exactly as Marcus had described, intimate, without being cramped. Warm lighting, the smell of garlic and fresh bread and wine in the air. They were seated at a corner table, close enough for privacy, but visible enough not to feel isolated. After they ordered, Daniel going with Marcus's mushroom risotto recommendation, Marcus getting handmade pasta with sage butter, and silence fell. Not quite awkward, but weighted with anticipation and uncertainty. So Marcus started, then laughed. "This is the part where we do the getting to know you thing, right? Ask deep questions and reveal our souls over appetizers. Is that required?" Daniel asked, aiming for light but feeling his defenses rising. Marcus's expression softened. "No, but I'd like to, if you're willing. I know you're private, and that's okay. But I'm really interested in you, Daniel. The real you, not just the surface version." There it was, again, that directness, that genuine interest that Marcus seemed to offer so freely. It should have been overwhelming. Instead, it felt like an invitation. "What do you want to know?" Daniel asked carefully. Everything Marcus said immediately, then caught himself. "Sorry, that's intense. How about we start smaller? What made you become an architect?" It was a safe question, professional territory. Daniel could handle this. "I like creating spaces where people feel something," Daniel said. "Where light and structure and design come together to make people feel safe, inspired, home." Paused, surprised by his own honesty. "I guess I'd build the kinds of spaces I wanted to exist in." Marcus leaned forward, genuinely engaged. "That's beautiful. Do you have a project you're most proud of?" Daniel thought of the community center he designed 2 years ago. His first lead project? "There's a youth center in Renton I designed. It's for LGBTQ+ teens, a safe space with counseling services and art rooms and a library. We used a lot of natural light, made it feel open and welcoming instead of institutional." He felt warmth in his chest, remembering it. At the opening, this kid, maybe 15, told me it was the first place that felt safe. That made every difficult moment of the project worth it. When Daniel looked up, Marcus was watching him with such tender attention that Daniel felt exposed and valued simultaneously. "That's incredible," Marcus said softly. "You give people sanctuary. That's not just architecture. That's care. That's love made physical." No one had ever described Daniel's work that way. Cameron had always seen it as just a job, even when Daniel tried to explain the deeper meaning behind his designs. "What about you?" Daniel asked, deflecting attention. "Why coffee?" Marcus smiled, his fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth. "Honestly, it started as survival. I came out to my family when I was 22, right after college. They didn't disown me, but they went quiet, polite, like I was a stranger living in their son's body." Pain flickered across his face. "I needed to build something that was mine, you know? A space where I could be completely myself and create joy for other people. Where being gay wasn't something to be quiet about." "The pride flag in the window," Daniel said. Remembering the small rainbow that hung beside the shop's hours sign? "Asterisk, that flag stays up year-round," Marcus confirmed. "Because kids like that 15-year-old in your community center need to know where the safe spaces are." "And because I refuse to hide anymore," he met Daniel's eyes. We all need places where we can just exist as ourselves. Their appetizers arrived: burrata for Marcus, bruschetta for Daniel, and the conversation flowed more easily as they ate. They discovered shared tastes. Both loved science fiction novels. Both ran away from horror movies. Both had complicated relationships with their families, but were working on them. My parents are trying, Marcus explained as he tore bread. We have Sunday dinners now. It's stiff, and there are topics we avoid, but they're trying. My dad asked about the shop last month. Actually asked. Seemed interested. Baby steps. That's more than some people get, Daniel observed. What about your family? Marcus asked. You and Sophie seem close. Sophie's my person, Daniel said simply. Always has been. My parents are fine, supportive, loving in their own way. They were great when I came out at 16. But Sophie's the one who really knows me. Or tries to. Tries to. Marcus caught the phrasing. Daniel shifted, uncomfortable. I'm not always easy to know. I'm closed off, guarded. He forced himself to continue, to be honest. My ex used to say I was emotionally unavailable. That loving me was like loving a locked room with no key. He expected Marcus to pull back, to reconsider this whole thing. Instead, Marcus reached across the table, his hand palm up, an offering. After a moment's hesitation, Daniel took it. First of all, Marcus said, his thumb tracing gentle circles on Daniel's hand, your ex sounds like he wasn't willing to put in the work. And second, you're not a locked room. You're careful about who you let in. There's a difference. Is there? Daniel's voice was barely above a whisper. Yeah. One suggests you're broken. The other suggests you're wise. Marcus squeezed his hand gently. You've been hurt. You're protecting yourself. That's not a flaw, Daniel. That's survival. Something in Daniel's chest cracked wider. When was the last time someone had validated his fear instead of criticizing it? I want to let you in, Daniel admitted. I'm just not sure I remember how, and we'll figure it out together. Marcus said simply, no pressure, no timeline, just honesty. When you're scared, tell me. When it's too much, tell me. When you need space, tell me. I can work with all of that. What I can't work with is silence. I can do honesty, Daniel said, meaning it. I can try. That's all I'm asking. Their entrees arrived, and as promised, the mushroom risotto was transcendent, creamy and earthy and perfect. They fell into easier conversation, sharing bites of food, laughing at stories about terrible customers and difficult clients and the absurdity of Seattle weather, but beneath the lightness, Daniel felt the weight of something significant building between them. Connection. Real. Genuine connection. Over dessert, a shared tiramisu that they both reached for at the same time. Laughing when their forks collided, Marcus grew more serious. Can I ask you something personal? Marcus said. Daniel's defenses rose automatically, but he pushed them down. Yes, what are you afraid of? Like really afraid of, when it comes to this. Marcus gestured between them to us. The question was direct, vulnerable. And Daniel felt trapped between his instinct to deflect and his promise to be honest. Honesty won. I'm afraid of not being enough, Daniel said quietly. Of you realizing that I'm too much work, too complicated, too broken, that you'll get tired of trying to reach me and leave, and I'll have let myself care enough that it destroys me. He forced himself to meet Marcus's eyes. I'm afraid of hope, because hope means there's something to lose. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes searching Daniel's face. Then he spoke, his voice gentle but firm. I'm afraid too, Marcus said. I'm afraid of being too much, too intense, too open to everything. I'm afraid you'll decide I'm not worth the effort of opening up, that you'll keep me at arm's length forever, and I'll love you from a distance I can never cross. But I'm more afraid of not trying, of letting fear steal something that could be beautiful. Love. Daniel's heart pounded at the word Marcus had used so casually. Marcus flushed slightly. Hypothetically. Eventually. Maybe. Then his expression turned defiant. But yeah, Daniel, I could love you. I'm already halfway there, if I'm being honest. And that terrifies me. But I'm not going to run from it. Daniel felt like he couldn't breathe. This was too fast, too intense, too real. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat, to protect himself. But looking at Marcus, this brave, open, radiant man who was offering his heart with full knowledge it might get broken, Daniel made a choice. I'm scared, Daniel said, but I don't want to run. Marcus's smile was brilliant and relieved. Yeah. Daniel squeezed Marcus's hand, still entwined with his on the table. I want to try with you, even though it terrifies me. We'll be terrified together, Marcus said. That's the deal. They left the restaurant hand in hand, walking through Capitol Hill as the October night wrapped around them. The streets were alive with Friday energy, people laughing outside bars, music spilling from open doors. The beautiful chaos of city life. Can I walk you home? Marcus asked. Or is that to rom-com cliche? I like rom-coms, Daniel admitted. Don't tell anyone, Marcus laughed. That full-bodied joy that seemed to come so easily to him. Your secret's safe with me. They walked slowly, neither wanting the night to end. Daniel learned that Marcus loved terrible puns. That he volunteered at the youth center Daniel had designed. That he dreamed of opening a second coffee shop someday. When they reached Daniel's building, they lingered on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to say goodbye. I had a really good time tonight, Marcus said. Me too. Daniel meant it completely. Can I see you again? Like on purpose. Not just as your barista? I'd like that. Marcus stepped closer, his eyes searching Daniel's face. Can I kiss you? Daniel's heart raced. Yes, the kiss was gentle. Tentative, a question being asked and answered. Marcus's lips were soft, tasting of coffee and sugar from dessert. His hand cupped Daniel's face with such tenderness that Daniel felt emotion well up in his throat. When they pulled apart, Marcus was smiling. Wow, yeah, Daniel agreed, breathless. Wow, I should go, Marcus said, though he didn't move. Before I do something embarrassing like confess feelings way too early, what if I want you to stay? Daniel surprised himself by asking. Marcus's eyes widened. Stay. Like stay? Just talk. Coffee. Company. Daniel felt vulnerable making the offer. No pressure. I don't want tonight to end yet. The smile that spread across Marcus's face was worth every moment of fear. I'd love that. They sat on Daniel's couch until 2 a.m., drinking coffee that Marcus made in Daniel's kitchen, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel showed Marcus his sketchbooks full of building designs and half-formed ideas. Marcus showed Daniel videos of latte art fails from when he first started making coffee. At some point, they ended up closer together. Marcus's head on Daniel's shoulder, Daniel's arm around Marcus's waist. It felt natural. Right. This is nice, Marcus murmured, his eyes drifting closed. Oh. Yeah, Daniel agreed softly. It really is. For the first time in years, Daniel felt the walls around his heart beginning to crumble. It was terrifying. It was beautiful. It was worth the risk. The next 8 weeks passed in a blur of coffee dates, long conversations and stolen kisses. Daniel learned Marcus's routines, how he hummed when he was happy, how he got quiet when he was processing emotions, how he showed love through acts of service, always remembering Daniel's favorite drinks, texting him reminders to eat lunch, leaving little notes in Daniel's coat pockets that Daniel would find later and save. Marcus learned Daniel's patterns too, how he needed space when overwhelmed, how he expressed affection through listening intently and remembering small details, how his walls would sometimes slam back up without warning when he felt too exposed. They learned each other. It wasn't always easy. There was the night Daniel canceled plans last minute because he felt too anxious to be social, then didn't explain why, leaving Marcus confused and hurt until Daniel finally called at midnight to apologize and talk through his panic. There was the afternoon. Marcus showed up at Daniel's office unannounced with lunch, and Daniel's reaction, more frustrated than pleased, made Marcus withdraw. Convinced he was too much, until Daniel explained that he needed warnings for spontaneity. That surprises overwhelmed his need for control. "I'm sorry," Daniel had said, holding Marcus's hands in the parking lot. "It's not about you. It's about my brain needing to prepare for things. But I should have explained that before, not made you feel like you did something wrong. I should have asked instead of assuming spontaneity was romantic," Marcus replied. "We're learning. It's okay to mess up as long as we talk about it." They were getting better at the talking part. By December, they'd fallen into a rhythm. Daniel would stop by Grounds for Joy most mornings before work. Marcus would come to Daniel's apartment twice a week for dinner and conversation. They'd text throughout the day, nothing profound. Just small updates and terrible jokes and photos of interesting things they'd seen they hadn't said. "I love you yet." Daniel could feel the words building in his chest, but he was terrified to speak them first. Terrified of the vulnerability required to admit that Marcus had become essential to his happiness. Then Sophie invited them both to her holiday party. "It's mostly friends from work," Sophie explained when Daniel called to confirm. "Nothing fancy, just drinks and food and probably too much bad karaoke. But I want Marcus there. He's part of your life now, which means he's part of my life. Plus, I need someone who appreciates my Taylor Swift renditions." "I love it," Daniel said, smiling. "Thank you for including him, Danny." Sophie's voice softened. "You sound happy. Like really happy. I haven't heard you sound like this in years." Was he happy? Daniel examined the feeling, surprised to realize it was true. Despite the fear, despite the difficulty of opening up, despite every instinct telling him to protect himself, he was happy. "I am," he admitted. "Good. You deserve it. Both of you do." The party was exactly as Sophie had described. Cheerful chaos in her small apartment, people laughing and talking over indie music, the smell of mulled wine and sugar cookies in the air. Marcus fit in immediately, charming Sophie's friends with the same ease he brought to the coffee shop. Daniel watched him laugh at someone's story, help refill drinks, and compliment the host's decorations, and felt a wave of affection so strong it almost knocked him over. He was in love with Marcus. The realization didn't come as a shock, so much as an acknowledgement of what had been building for weeks. He loved Marcus's kindness, his openness, his willingness to meet Daniel exactly where he was. He loved how Marcus made him want to be braver, to try harder, to let himself be known. "You're staring," Sophie said, appearing at Daniel's elbow with a knowing smile. "I love him," Daniel said, the words escaping before he could stop them. Sophie's face lit up. "I know. Have you told him?" "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because saying it made it real. Because once he said it, he couldn't take it back. Because loving someone was the ultimate vulnerability, and Daniel had spent so long protecting himself from exactly that." "I'm scared," Daniel admitted. Sophie squeezed his arm. "Being scared means it matters. Tell him, Danny. He feels the same way. Anyone with eyes can see it." Could Marcus love him back? Daniel wanted to believe it, but doubt lingered. How could someone as radiant and open as Marcus love someone as complicated and guarded as Daniel? As if summoned by his thoughts, Marcus appeared, slightly flushed from the apartment's warmth, his smile brilliant. "Your sister's friends are delightful," Marcus said. "I've been recruited for karaoke." "You have to sing with me." "Absolutely not." "Come on, one song. We can do a duet. I'll even let you pick something moody and emotional instead of pop." Daniel found himself agreeing before he'd consciously decided to. Marcus's enthusiasm infectious. They ended up singing terribly, a rendition of Falling Slowly from Once, Marcus taking the female part with dramatic flair. Daniel surprisingly steady on the male harmony. The room erupted in applause when they finished, but Daniel only saw Marcus, flushed and laughing and beautiful later. They escaped to Sophie's small balcony, needing a break from the noise and warmth. The December air was sharp and cold. The city stretched below them with its lights and life. "Thank you for coming," Daniel said. "To the party, I mean. I know meeting everyone can be overwhelming. Are you kidding? I love this." Marcus leaned against the railing, his breath visible in the cold air. "Your sister's great. Her friends are great. Watching you relax and have fun, actually have fun, it's basically my favorite thing." "I have fun with you," Daniel said. "But this is different. You're not just relaxing with Muir, relaxing in public, with people. You're letting people see you happy. Acosta's smile was tender. That's growth, Daniel. That's healing, was it? Daniel thought back to who he'd been 3 months ago, isolated, guarded, going through the motions of life without really living. Now he sang karaoke at parties. Now he held hands in public. Now he let himself hope. You did that, Daniel said quietly. You made me want to try. No, Marcus corrected gently. You did that? I believed you could. There's a difference. They were standing close now, Marcus's warmth a contrast to the cold night air. Daniel could smell his cologne, something cedar and clean. Marcus, Daniel started, his heart pounding. I need to tell you something. Marcus's expression grew serious. Okay, the words stuck in Daniel's throat. Every fear, every defense, every wall he'd ever built rose up to stop him. But then he thought about what Marcus had said weeks ago at their first dinner. I'm more afraid of not trying, of letting fear steal something that could be beautiful. Daniel took a breath and jumped. I love you, he said. I'm terrified to say it, and I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm sorry if it's too soon or too much, but I love you. You make me want to be braver and softer at the same time. You seem to really see me and you haven't run away. You're patient with my walls and gentle with my fear, and you make me laugh, and you make me feel safe, and he was rambling again. I love you. For a moment, Marcus just stared at him, eyes wide and shining. Then he laughed, a sound of pure joy, and cupped Daniel's face in his hands. I love you too, Marcus said. God, Daniel, I've been in love with you since the second week of coffee conversations. I've been waiting for you to catch up. Relief and joy flooded through Daniel. Really? Really? Marcus kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart, he was grinning. Though for the record, that was the most beautifully awkward love confession I've ever heard. Very you. Shut up, Daniel said, but he was smiling. Make me. So Daniel kissed him again, deeper this time, pouring everything he felt into it, love and gratitude and hope and possibility. Marcus kissed back just as intensely, his hands tangling in Daniel's hair, making a small sound of contentment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against Daniel's. I'm so glad you walked into my coffee shop, Marcus whispered. Me too, Daniel said. Best decision I ever made. They stood there in the cold, wrapped in each other, until Sophie's voice called from inside that they were cutting the cake, and if they didn't come in immediately, she was eating their slices. That night, after the party, they went back to Daniel's apartment. There was a new ease between them now. The words spoken aloud shifting something fundamental. They moved through Daniel's space with familiar comfort, making tea while Daniel changed into comfortable clothes, both settling on the couch in their usual positions, close and warm. Can I ask you something? Marcus said after a while, his voice quiet. Always. What changed? Between pushing me away that first week and letting me in? Daniel thought about it, trying to articulate something he barely understood himself. You didn't give up, he said finally. Everyone else in my life, they let me hide. They accepted my walls because it was easier than trying to climb them. But you saw them and decided I was worth the effort anyway. You were patient but persistent. You didn't push too hard, but you didn't let me disappear either. He shifted to look at Marcus properly. You made me feel like I was worth knowing, not despite my complicated parts, but including them. Marcus's eyes were bright with emotion. You are worth knowing, Daniel. Every part of you. I'm starting to believe that, Daniel admitted, because of you. He kissed again, slow and tender, and for the first time in his life, Daniel didn't feel afraid of the intimacy. When Marcus's hands slid under his shirt, warm against his skin, Daniel didn't freeze or pull away. When they eventually moved to the bedroom, Daniel felt vulnerable but safe. Exposed but protected. They took their time, learning each other's bodies the way they'd learned each other's hearts, with patience and attention and care. Marcus was gentle and attentive, checking in, making sure Daniel was comfortable, present. Daniel let himself be vulnerable in ways he'd never allowed before, trusting Marcus to handle his heart carefully. Afterward, lying tangled together in the dark, Daniel felt fundamentally changed. Not fixed. He would never be fixed. Would always carry his complicated parts. But known, seen, loved anyway. You okay? Marcus murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on Daniel's shoulder. More than okay, Daniel said honestly. Perfect, actually. Yeah. Marcus's smile was audible in his voice. Yeah, they fell asleep like that. Wound together, and Daniel didn't have a single nightmare. Christmas came, and they spent it together morning at Sophie's for family brunch. Afternoon at Marcus's apartment, where he taught Daniel to make his grandmother's tamales recipe. Evening wrapped in blankets, watching terrible holiday movies. This is the best Christmas I've had in years, Marcus said, as credits rolled on their third movie. Me too, Daniel agreed. Then, because he was learning to be brave, every day with you is the best day. Marcus laughed, delighted. Are you getting sappy on me, Daniel Reed? Maybe. Is that okay? It's perfect. Marcus kissed his temple. You're perfect. Not you are to me, Marcus, interrupted gently. Complicated and guarded and wonderful and perfect exactly as you are. Daniel let himself believe it. New Year's Eve found them back at Grounds for Joy, which Marcus had closed early for a small gathering, just close friends. People who'd become Daniel's friends too over the past months. As midnight approached, everyone spilled into the street to watch fireworks from a nearby show. Marcus pulled Daniel aside. Away from the crowd, his expression nervous and excited. I have something for you, Marcus said. Pulling a small wrapped package from his pocket, Daniel's heart raced. Marcus, you didn't have to. I wanted to. Open it. Inside was a key brass, and simple and meaningful. It's to the shop, Marcus explained quickly. And to my apartment? I know it's fast, and we don't have to rush anything, but I wanted you to have them. To know that you have a place here. With me, whenever you want it. Daniel stared at the keys, emotion welling up in his throat. A key, an invitation, a promise of permanence. I have something for you too, Daniel said, reaching into his own pocket. He pulled out a small key ring with a single key. To my place. I had it made last week. I was just scared to give it to you. Marcus's eyes widened. Daniel. I want you to have a place with me too, Daniel said. I want this us. All of it. Marcus kissed him as the crowd behind them started counting down to midnight. They pulled apart just in time to hear Happy New Year. Shouted from dozens of throats. Fireworks exploding overhead in cascades of color and light. Happy New Year, Daniel, Marcus whispered. Happy New Year, Daniel replied. I love you. I love you too. Oz fireworks painted the sky, and their friends cheered and celebrated around them. Daniel held Marcus close and marveled at how far he'd come. From isolated and guarded to open and loved. From afraid to hopeful, he thought about that first morning. Walking into Grounds for Joy with no idea his life was about to change. How Marcus had seen through his walls immediately, decided he was worth the effort, had been patient and persistent and perfect. Thank you, Daniel said suddenly. For what? For not giving up on me. For seeing something worth knowing. For loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. Marcus's smile was radiant, beautiful. Home. Always, Daniel. Always. And as the fireworks continued to light up the Seattle sky, Daniel knew with absolute certainty that he'd found what he'd been looking for all along, not someone to fix him, but someone to know him. Not someone to complete him, but someone to grow beside. He'd found his person. He'd found home. 6 months later, Daniel stood in front of his design team, presenting his latest project, new community center in Belltown. Even bigger than the one in Renton. The goal, Daniel explained, clicking through his presentation, is to create a space that feels welcoming and safe for everyone. But especially for LGBTQ+ youth who need somewhere to belong. Large windows for natural light, soft colors, flexible spaces for art and music, and just existing. A place that says, you are seen, You are valid. You are home. After the presentation, his boss pulled him aside. This is some of your best work, Daniel. What's changed? You've always been talented, but lately there's something more. Personal in your designs. Daniel thought about Marcus, about love, about learning to be vulnerable and open and authentic. I learned to design from a place of hope instead of fear, he said simply. It makes all the difference. That evening, he met Marcus at their coffee shop because, yes, it was theirs now, in every way that mattered. Marcus had insisted on putting up photos of them together, had introduced Daniel to every regular as my partner, had made their relationship a visible, celebrated part of the space. How'd the presentation go? Marcus asked, sliding Daniel's usual across the counter, the maple cinnamon latte from that very first day. Because some things were too perfect to change. Perfect, Daniel said. I told them about wanting to create spaces where people feel safe being themselves. They loved it. Marcus's smile was proud and warm. Of course they did. You're brilliant. I learned from the best, Daniel said, gesturing around the coffee shop. You create safe space every day. I just do it with blueprints. As Daniel sat in his favorite corner, watching Marcus work and laugh and shine, he felt nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for the courage to try, for the patience to heal, for the willingness to be vulnerable. He thought about his conversation with Sophie all those months ago. Being scared means it matters. She'd been right. Everything worth having was scary, but the fear was worth it every moment of terror, every instance of vulnerability, every risk taken, because on the other side of fear was this: love, partnership, home. On the other side of fear was Marcus. On the other side of fear was a life actually lived instead of merely survived. Daniel pulled out his sketchbook and began to draw out buildings this time. But Marcus, behind the counter, captured in graphite and love and absolute certainty, this was his story. Not about being fixed or saved or completed, about being seen, being known, being loved for exactly who he was, about finding the courage to open his heart, let someone in, about true gay hearts finding each other and choosing, despite the fear to try. And wasn't that the bravest thing of all?